When I was a kid, I wanted so badly to grow up to be a big muscle guy, like the muscly axe-wielding barbarians from the posters on my wall, or the fantasy books that I'd be a-reading. Big muscle dweeb, that's what I wanted. Not enough to lift weights or eat a proper diet, unless you count lifting a 32-inch tube TV up the basement stairs exactly one time and eating mostly Captain Crunch to be that. I do, but it didn't work. My muscles never came in. I'm still holding out hope though. Maybe if I just eat a little more Captain Crunch. So I've learned the hard way that wanting to be something doesn't necessarily mean you get to be that thing. You gotta put in the work. You gotta lift weights, eat protein or whatever, and actually emulate PlayStation Vita games. This isn't a Vita, is what I'm saying. That's the analogy. This is called the RG Vita, and it looks sorta like a Vita, but it is no Vita. It's a pretty swell PSP though. That's something. I didn't have a Vita. I've never even touched one. I've seen them in pictures, I've seen videos, and yeah, they look pretty nice, but I don't need a Vita in my life. I checked the Vita exclusives and there's maybe 2 or 3 that I'd actually want to play. Everything else I care about is on other platforms that are way easier to emulate. And I can tell you that it doesn't take a Vita expert to say that this isn't a good Vita. It's a bad Vita, as you'll see. But for me, that's actually not a big deal because I'd rather have a good PSP. And this is that. I'm a massive fan of the PSP library, so having this lovely retro-style PSP in my life is definitely appealing. It's not perfect though, and the flaws will matter more or less depending on what you want to play. And we'll get into that, but first, specs. This bad girl is rocking the Unisoc T618 chip. That's the same chip from the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, by the way. We get 3GB of RAM, the screen is a 5.5-inch LCD, 1280 by 720 resolution, 60Hz, 64GB of internal storage. We also get Wi-Fi 5, Bluetooth 5.0, a 5000 mAh battery, and it's running Android 12. We're also getting a Pro version of this, the RG Vita Pro. And a little bird told me that it's going to use a different chip, the RK3576 chip, which is about 30% more powerful than the T618 in the base model. And it's going to have 4GB of RAM, and also a higher resolution LCD screen, full 1080p on that. And we'll talk about the performance in a bit. The one big unknown is the price. Amberlick hasn't told us yet. I kind of hate reviewing these things without knowing the price because this could be amazing or terrible, depending on what it ends up costing. My guess is it'll be $50 to $100 for the base and $100 to $150 for the Pro. And if it costs more than that, then no, it's not good. It's frustrating that I can't tell you what I think of the value. When the prices are announced, I'll do what I usually do and I'll add a pinned comment in the thingy below. So you can peek down there and find out the price and also what I think of it. On the front, we have a D-pad in the upper spot and a left stick in the lower spot, a couple Android function buttons down here, and a screen in the middle, face buttons, right stick, and start and select. Up top, we have some bumpers and triggers, and a USB-C hole for charging. No video out on this device, by the way. Here's a function button, volume up and down, and a power button. Nothing on the sides. Underneath, we have downward firing speakers, and a headphone hole, woo! And an SD card hole for stuff like an SD card. Around back, we have some grippy grooves on the sides and some holes for passive cooling. No fan on this guy. As soon as I opened this and I touched it with my unmuscular hands and I gazed upon it with my unmuscular eyeballs, I kinda fell in love. I think this is an absolutely lovely device. It's got a perfect blend of modern class with retro aesthetics. Obviously harnessing some of the PSP and Vita nostalgia, but it's doing its own thing too. I love the idea of having a device that is great for PSP, that looks sort of PSP-ish, but it also has that retro Game Boy aesthetic to it. And also, it feels premium. The plastic feels great, the all-glass front looks great, the creamy beige body with the DMG-style buttons and the gray D-pad and bumpers, this just instantly got my dweeby juices flowing. And they're still flowing. I'm juicy as heck over here. I really do love the way this thing looks and feels. They freaking nailed it, in my opinion. Which might not be yours, but it should be. Because it's right. And the hand feel is great. These finger grooves are in a great spot, and the curved sides fill out my palms nicely. All the controls are spaced appropriately, easy to reach everything I want to. Nothing feels cramped. It's also thin and light too. They didn't add on any dumb ergonomic humps or make it too heavy. So I think this thing would actually do decently in the pocket. So I guess we should do a pocket test. Hey TechDweeb, I'm back and I'm happy to be here, ready to do a pocket test for ya. You think you're smart, huh? What do you mean? Oh, like you don't know. I don't. What? You think you can just go right over my head, huh? My mom found out that I gave you the can and she said, no, I'm not allowed to fire you. She said that you're a nice boy and that I had to let you stay. And how did she find out? She doesn't watch my videos, so how does she know? You obviously went to her and told on me, didn't you? I didn't go to your mom. Well, who did then? I don't know. Maybe one of your subscribers or something. Pfft, yeah, right. As if anyone watching would ever want you to stick around. I'm sorry, TechDweeb. I didn't want to cause trouble. I can go if you... No, Mom will turn off my internet if she finds out. No, I guess you're staying. That's what you wanted, right? So shut up and do a pocket test, you sneaky little worm. Yeah, right, okay. So a pocket, RG Vita in the pocket. It's pretty good in there. Not too thick, not too heavy. It's a little bit tall though, so if you have short pockets, it might stick out. So I'll say I guess it'll get a 6.5 on the pocketability scale. I hope this helps, TechDweeb. You're still a temp though. I am. You'll always be a temp to me. Oh, okay. Okay. The controls are mostly good actually. Let's get the bad news out of the way. The D-pad has a little bit of easy bias towards the diagonals. A bit too easy to hit those. So in like precision platformers or any game that requires very precise inputs, you might find it a little hard to hit the cardinal directions. It's not terrible, I can actually use it fine, and easy diagonals are actually a benefit in some games, like fighting games. You want easy diagonals there. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but if the contra test is super important to you, then this might not be your favorite D-pad. The rest of the controls are pretty good though. Great sticks. I don't know if they're Hall sticks or whatever, but they have solid input quality and a good range of movement, no cardinal snapping. The face buttons feel great as always. Kind of a firm rubber membrane, the same way that Amberlick usually does. Clicky bumpers, not a super loud click, but definitely something you can hear. Same thing with the triggers. These aren't analog triggers, they're buttons. Clicky triggers. I like the controls in general, but I think it's more that I like the feel of the device itself and gaming on it. The controls themselves are, they're just fine, I guess. Maybe if it's an expensive doodad, we'll have more to complain about, but for my needs, and if this is cheap, I'm pretty darn fine with all these components. Except for this useless button here. This out-of-the-way button at the top in the middle. Like, what is this even for? Oh, it's just a button that reminds you to click the subscribe button. That's actually pretty useful. Don't want to forget to do that, right? The screen on here is, it's fine. It's a 720p screen, which is crisp enough at this size. It might be a little on the unsaturated side in terms of the colors. However, when I went into the Android settings and I picked the high contrast color profile, that did help quite a bit. I think maybe Amberlick has a little bit of display calibrating to do on this thing. Maybe they'll do that in the software. And speaking of things that they should probably fix before the final version launches, Amberlick did that thing that they did on the devices of the past. They have this system-wide sharpening filter applied. You can really see it on menu elements like the edges of these oval buttons. How the edge of the buttons has like a glow. That's not supposed to be there. That's sharpening. And it's obnoxious. I guess it's good if you like this, but I don't, and I don't want it there. So Amberlick, come on, this isn't fair. If you're gonna do this, at least make this a toggle that we can turn off in your settings. That said, this sharpening filter isn't as ugly and obtrusive as it was in the past. It's more ignorable here. And hopefully, if Amberlick doesn't fix this, there will be a community-made fix for this, like there is on the other doodads. Russ from Retro Game Corp said that his screen was getting like weird ghost inputs, and mine did not do that. No ghost inputs here. Which is good because ghosts are scary. Other than that, there's not much else to say about the screen. It's big enough, it looks good. Not super bright, but bright enough for most uses, I think, and definitely dim on the low end so you can play it
in the darkness.
A little bit of ghosting as is typical for cheap LCDs, but it's not terrible. Games look good. I'm curious to see if the 1080p Pro version feels like an upgrade or not. And the sound is fine. Typical retro handheld sound. Downward facing speakers, which isn't ideal, but it's not the end of the world. Loud enough and clear enough, but not very like full sounding. Just a little bit muffled and a little bit tinny, but it's not bad. They're fine. And the system is also pretty darn fine. Not a whole lot to talk about, really. It's an Amberlick device, which means that it's a pretty basic build of Android and a few customizations like the RG launcher, which is Amberlick's front end. A few other quick settings like enabling the high performance mode, no fan control, there's no fan on this, a few controller settings and some other stuff under the hood. Yeah, it's fine. This gets the job done. It does come pre-installed with emulators as usual, and these emulators are kinda crappy as usual. They're all old versions and there's some weird choices here. Easy enough to uninstall the stock stuff and reinstall your own stuff, which is what I did. I installed the latest version of all the important emulators and I installed ESDE as my gaming and Android front end. I even installed this lovely new PSP emulation station theme to complete the look. Check this out. I'm living the PSP dream life over here. Let's start with Vita because calling this thing a Vita was dumb. That was a dumb. If you put Vita in the name and make it look like a Vita and then have it be awful at Vita emulation, that's like a sick joke. That's like selling me a car called the driving machine and it doesn't have the ability to have wheels. They should have called it something neutral. Something with zero expectations, like the Zazzle Zoob. Nobody's ever bought a Zazzle Zoob and said, wow, I thought this would run Vita flawlessly, because they're too busy asking, what the hell is a Zazzle Zoob and why do I own one? If you're familiar with my channel, you'll notice I don't show off PlayStation Vita emulation. And that's mostly because I'm not actually into Vita emulation. I don't care about those games. The majority of the games that I want to play are available on other platforms, better versions, all updated and convenient. And also, Vita emulation is kind of a pain in the buns. Vita 3K is pretty early in development. The UI is ugly, the setup is janky, stuff crashes. I hope it's amazing someday, but right now it's just very much a work in progress. And here's the kicker, you basically need custom GPU drivers to make Vita worthwhile. High-end device, low-end device, doesn't matter. Custom drivers are the secret sauce. And the T618 in this thing, or the RK3576 in the Pro, they don't get that sauce. No drivers. They're sauceless, like a dry sandwich with no mustard or mayo. Not even worth eating, really. So Vita emulation here is basically dead on arrival. Some easy games work. I spent way too long hunting for titles that didn't jank out on me. Installs would crash, games would crash, the app would freeze. Maybe it's the 3 gigabytes of RAM, maybe it's a chip, maybe it's your fault. I don't know. Vita sucks on this thing, is what I'm saying. But I'm also saying that the bad Vita stuff is vastly outshined by the lovely PSP stuff. This is a great PSP device. The T618 chip that we have in here is plenty strong enough for basically any PSP. You can run most stuff upscaled to the full 720p of this screen, and there's a handful of harder to emulate games like the God of War games, but even those will run at 2x resolution. The PSP library is vast and varied, full of amazing, unique games that are only available on the PSP. Racing games, fighting games, RPGs, strategy games, platformers, side-scrollers, flying games, whatever kind of games you're into, the PSP has them. This was Sony in their portable gaming glory days, and the fact that we get this library on a lovely PSP-shaped device but with retro vibes just gets me all spicy. So spice! As for the rest of the high-end stuff, don't get your hopes up. You won't get like any Switch on here. 3DS isn't worth trying for, and even like GameCube and PS2. This is gonna be disappointing for you. Not a lot of stuff will run. If you want a deep dive into the performance, check out some reviews of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. This is the same chip in here, and you'll get similar performance. We have devices like the Magni Air X that can do some GameCube and PS2, and that device is $100. I guess we'll have to wait and see what the price of this one is to say whether or not it's alright. And it probably goes without saying, but the rest of the older stuff is just fine. Obviously, you'll be able to play all the PS1 and Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast or whatever. You can use widescreen hacks for lots of that stuff too, to take advantage of the widescreen. Older 4x3 retro stuff can't do that, but it's still great to play on here, of course. The system itself is fast and snappy, so jumping between Super Nintendo and Genesis and arcade and Game Boy Advance games is fun and satisfying. Yeah, it's a good gaming experience overall, as long as you don't expect the high-end stuff. I kinda hate that I can't wrap this video up with some grand conclusion and say, this thing is amazing, or this thing is a dud, because that'll depend on the price, which we don't know yet. I don't even know if Amberlick knows. I feel like these companies are just biding their time, waiting to the last minute to decide prices because it's all changing so fast. The impact of the AI RAM and storage apocalypse changes the tech landscape every freaking day. So we'll see what it ends up being. Right now, I can only give this thing a solid maybe. But regardless of the price, if you're into PSP and you want a great PSP-shaped doodad with retro vibes, then this is worth considering. I am super into this thing. I love it for what it does well. And I just hope that Amberlick listens to feedback, rebalances the color profile of the screen, and gets rid of the sharpening and changes the name to the Zazzlezoob. Alright, I'm done talking. You can stop pretending to listen now. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.